It's horse show season around these parts, and to experienced broke horse moms, this means long days, expensive bills, and making memories, of course. But to those navigating their kids' first show season, it usually means a whole lot of questions. So today, we are having a very real conversation about horse shows, what they are, how they work, what they cost, and how to navigate them without completely losing your mind or your bank account. Welcome to Broke Horse Moms, the podcast that helps non-horsey horse moms navigate the confusing, expensive, and all-consuming world of equestrian life. I'm your host, Angie Trueblood, and like you, I did not grow up in the horse world. But once my daughter fell in love with riding, I found myself Googling, what is a lead change? Why are riding pants called breeches? And how much does it cost to lease a horse? This show is here to make the horse world more understandable, more accessible, and a lot less lonely for the moms figuring it out as we go. Well, hello, my friend. So spring has sprung here in Virginia, as you may be able to tell from my voice, which also means it is horse show season. We actually had our first horse show of the season this past weekend, and it was a good one. It was a very long one with some bursts of rain, but overall a really great weekend. And I thought it would make sense to record an episode kind of giving the behind the scenes broke horse moms perspective into horse shows, because they're usually very big milestones in a kid's riding journey. And they're also a part of it that many of us come into the sport knowing absolutely nothing about. So let's get right into it. So let's start with deciding to go to a horse show, because in my mind, especially when we were new to this, the words horse show sounds simple enough. The trainer says, oh, there's a show coming up. And your kiddo says, okay, I'll do it. It'll be fun. And the trainer encourages her. Oh, she should try it. And we're kind of off to the races and running. But no one ever really takes us through all of the questions that we have about shows in general. So first off, there are actually different types of shows. Many beginner lesson barns host shows that are on site. So you never have to load a horse onto a trailer and take them off property. These are super relaxed, much lower costs than leaving the property to go show. And they're really a great way for kids to get a feel for what I really hate about this sport is the idea of being judged. But it's a great first step into showing. At some point, though, your kid is likely going to graduate to literally what I just learned a couple of months ago, shows that are called schooling shows. They are still pretty chill and intended to be a learning experience for kids, but they come with some added expense compared to a show at a lesson barn and some added pressure for the kiddo because they're competing against people that they are unfamiliar with. So after schooling shows, as we're kind of going up the ranks, there are what I call just away shows. These could be larger shows, longer even, not like your one-day schooling show. You may stay for a couple of days. And they usually are hosted under the umbrella of a larger state association. So here in Virginia, we've got VHSA, the Virginia Horse Show Association. And there are shows that you can travel to throughout Virginia where you can earn points for VHSA. Now, next up, we have what's kind of at the top of this little imaginary pyramid are rated shows, which I think is a really weird name to call a horse show, but this is what the lingo is out there. So these are shows that accumulate points for larger nationwide associations like USEF, which is U.S. Equestrian Federation, I think, or USHJA, which is the United States Hunter Jumper Association. These shows are bigger. They are more competitive. You're going to see professionals riding in them. They're more structured-ish, and they tend to be significantly more expensive. So your kiddo likely is going to start at an on-site show at their home barn or likely a schooling show. But somewhere along the way, the truth is between these away shows and maybe the rated show, you as the parent start to realize that this isn't just a hobby for your kid. It is really what they're passionate about. It ends up eating up about as much time as a part-time job would, and often can cost about the same as you might make from a part-time job. So as you scale up in the shows, it's really interesting just to see sort of the commitment and the dedication that grows with your kid. So I want to take a quick second and share something a little bit personal. If you've been around here for a hot second, you know that my daughter Chloe has set a goal this year of qualifying for and competing in pony jumper finals in Lexington, Kentucky. This is one of those big national level rated, we'll use that word, shows where kiddos have to qualify in order to be able to go to this show and compete in it. So if you've been listening to this episode, even for a hot second, you already probably have a sneaking suspicion that this is not a small commitment. Between the qualifying shows, which happen to be 2 of those rated shows, travel, lodging, coaching, and all the pieces that go into it, I started to do the math last week. And I mean, husband, cover your ears. We're already up to $6,000 to make this happen. That said, Chloe works incredibly hard. She is at the barn constantly, 6 days a week at least, riding, helping, working, doing whatever she can to be a part of and supporting this sport that she loves. And as her mom, I really want to meet her in that effort as best as I can. So I have set up a simple page where if this podcast has helped you, or if you just believe in supporting a horse-obsessed kid chasing a very big goal of hers, you can contribute in whatever way feels right. You can contribute as an individual, and also if you own a business or know of a business who might want to get their name out in front of our audiences, we have those options too. Truly, there is no pressure at all. I know firsthand how expensive this life already is, but if you do want to be a part of helping us get there, it would mean so much to us. You can go to the page that I've set up on our website, which is brokehorsemoms.com/ponyfinals. Or if you know you want to contribute and help out, I've set up a Venmo account for us, and it's at Broke Horse Moms. So if you have Venmo, you can contribute that way. Just make sure I know your name and email address so that we can thank you. I will link everything in the show notes, but honestly, this is exactly why I care so much about having these conversations, because behind every horse show is a family who is figuring out how to make it all work. And for us, this Broke Horse Moms is one way that I feel like I'm able to give back to the moms who are stepping into the shoes I was in years ago, while also hopefully helping out my kiddo. So thank you, my friend, for that. All right, the next part of showing, which is probably one of the most confusing, is actually signing up for a show. So your kid decides they want to go for it. They want to give a horse show a shot. There's 2 different options really for signing up. And we're assuming that we're talking about a schooling show at this point, not an on-property show at your barn. So we have always signed ourselves up for shows because we've always been with trainers who told us to do that. So we did it. But I have come to find out that there are several trainers who prefer just to sign their own groups of kiddos up. It's probably easier. They probably do it because they don't have to answer 5,000 questions from all the parents. So those are kind of your 2 options, and you'll just find out from your trainer how they navigate this. If you yourself, as the mom, have to sign your kid up, a lot of these schooling shows even are using online registration platforms, which makes our life so much easier. And also, it's written in a language that many of us do not understand, which is horse language. I remember there was a mom this weekend signing up for a show, and she didn't know if she needed a stall, or I don't think they had tack stall on this, but the different classes, the different divisions. And that's a question too. What is a class? What is a division? So let's take a moment for that. When you sign up for a show, you have to choose, what's my kid going to compete in? And so you'll see on the registration page, and also on something they call the prize list, which is the dumbest name of anything. I mean, at the level of a schooling show, there are not really prizes per se. So I'm not quite sure what the history of calling it that is, but that's what they call the little booklet that explains all the different things that you can sign up for. So in the prize list, you will see that there are divisions. So these are like the larger categories. If you're a hunter, it might be pony pleasure as a division. And I know people are going to probably correct me because these are probably all wrong. There might be equitation over fences if you're in the hunter world. If you're in the jumper world, divisions might be open to 6 or pre-novice course. I don't even remember because CVSJA just renamed one of them. So the divisions are these larger categories, and then under the divisions are individual classes, which normally equate to a trip in the ring, is what we're going to call it. Like this past weekend, Chloe did 2 divisions. She did opens 2-6, and the second division was called lows. Within each of those divisions, there were 2 classes, and one was called optimum time. One was called jump off. Okay. So that's just giving a high level description of the lingo of horse shows. So hopefully that's helpful at some point. But when you're signing up, that's what you're actually signing up for. You're going in, you're deciding what division your kiddo is going to compete in, and under those divisions, what classes you're going to sign them up for. Totally talk to your trainer. Do not make those decisions on your own. So there is that. The other fun fact about signing up for horse shows is, as much as some of them have a little bit of a checkout page, the rated show that we're going to next week, we have already paid for the stall fee because Phoebe will be staying overnight. But I don't really know what the end bill is going to be. I believe there will be some extra fees added on for office fees or grounds fees. And I don't totally know what the divisions cost right now. So just know that when you're signing up for the horse show, often what you're doing is you are communicating your kiddo's intent to compete in these divisions and classes, and you will pay for those at the conclusion of the show. I remember when we first started, our trainer was like, yeah, you just leave a blank check at the secretary's desk. I'm like, the hell I am? I'm not leaving a blank check with someone I don't know. So often you will just have to check out at the end. And since we are in the year 2026, you often don't need to check out by check. You can pay through those online platforms that you've registered on. So, I mean, we're making headway, right? It is so modern. All right, part 3. Let's really get to what these costs actually are. So this is the part that I don't know that people dance around it on purpose. I think it's because it's very vague sometimes going into these shows, what the costs actually are until you get into these platforms where you're registering. And as a mom, I want to know, just show me what it's going to look like before I start signing up horses and kids. So I want to break it down in a way that makes sense because there are definitely different parts of a show and the show costs. So before the show, there's probably going to be a little bit of an increase in maybe the frequency of your lessons because you want your kiddo to feel prepared. So you might be ramping up more lessons. If you're like us, you've got some last minute gear needs. So just today, Chloe informed me that she needs to get a shorter crop before the away show next week because Phoebe's a pony and she's little and she needs a shorter one than the one she has. And I'm like, I don't actually think we need this. So that'll be a decision that we will figure out. You've also got memberships to some of these associations if you're trying to accumulate points throughout the year. So again, locally, even this past weekend, the organization that we competed in, was CVSJA, which is that Central Virginia Show Jumping Association. In order to accumulate points, you have to join, which I think the membership is $50. And typically they'll just tack it on to your first show. So these are all like before the show situations where you will be likely spending money. I know before our rated show, we already have to have our membership active before we even go. What about at the show? So there's the obvious costs, the entry fees, right? The divisions and the classes. Now that you know that, there are stall fees for especially away shows, or even if it's a long one-day show, it's really just you're renting a stall to be able to keep your horse in if you don't want to tie them to a trailer or walk them around like a puppy dog all day. And fun fact, if you rent a stall, you're also going to need to bring or pay for shavings for that stall so that the horse is not just standing on a stall mat. So there's that fun fact. And then there's also those sort of random fees on your registration or at checkout, office fees, ground fees. It's, fees. They just add up no matter what we're doing these days. But then there's the hidden costs at the show that I sure as heck didn't know about when we got into it. So the trainers charge a coaching fee, as they should. I was just clueless and had no idea. And that can really range anywhere from $25 to $100 for the day, depending largely on the type of show. Like, is it a schooling show that 30 kids from the barn are going to go to? Is it a show that's an hour and a half away? And how many days will they be away? So it's very dependent on a lot of variables. Again, this is where having a very clear line of communication with the trainer is of utmost importance. If they are not posting these fees somewhere, you need to be asking and getting those pieces of information in writing. At some shows, there's the cost of braiding or grooming, but these are more really at rated shows. And sometimes even jumpers won't need to braid their horses at some rated shows. So we're not going to carry on with that because typically at schooling shows, you don't need to braid your horse's mane or tail. When you get to that level, it's definitely an expense where you're either going to want to learn to braid or hire someone likely at the show or from your barn to do it for you. One thing I had no idea existed until we signed up for our first rated show last year was a tack stall. It's really just an extra stall that you're not going to put a horse in. You're going to put your tack trunk and your saddle and all of the equipment that you're bringing to the show. This is if it's an away show for multiple days, and typically with multiple people at your barn, you're going to want to have a place to put all your stuff that you can kind of keep it secure and out of the aisle. So that's another really fun expense that you can look forward to. But then there's also the cost of living that horse show life, which is a hotel or an Airbnb if you're staying overnight. There's the cost of food. Even for a one-day show, you may be tempted to get something from the food truck. There's the price of gas, which right now it's costing me $65 to fill up my Kia. And then some parents, if it's an away show for multiple days, take time off of work. So there's other ways and other costs that horse shows may have besides what you're actually paying in bills. So definitely consider those as you sort of step into horse show life, okay? So let's get real. I'm going to share with you what no one will tell you about horse shows, but that you will immediately become aware of upon your first horse show experience, is that you are entering an absolute twilight zone of time blindness. Now, if you are not gifted with ADHD, then you may not know what that means. It means time means nothing at horse shows. You will not have any idea what time your kid is going to show until the night before. And even then, you'll go to bed knowing that it will never be the actual time. It could skew anywhere from an hour later to 3 hours later, never earlier, just as a heads up. Because of that, you won't really know when the trailer is going to leave the barn until the day before. So when your family is asking, What time is Susie showing? You literally have no idea. You have no idea how long the day will last. What you think will be a 5-hour show, like we did this weekend, will end up being an 8-hour show or a 9-hour show. The schedule will make no sense at all. Throughout the day, you'll see a wide open ring with no horses in it and wonder, why is no one moving this along? It just is what it is. You won't have any idea who to ask for information on scheduling because it just seems like this horse show moves along on its own accord. I will tell you, pro tip, the person who typically will know the most about timing is going to be the person, I believe, called the steward, who sits at the gate right before your kiddo goes in. They normally are the ones calling out the order of go and who's up next. They typically have the most specific information about the schedule for the ring that you're about to go in. So if you're trying to get some estimate of how far behind they are, that's typically the best person to check with. But here's the thing. Everyone else at horse shows are going to look like they know what they're doing. And secret, they have no idea. There are probably a handful of adult professionals, adult amateurs who have done this, and going to a horse show is second nature to them. The vast majority of the rest are just figuring it out as we go. So similar to the advice that I gave you in episode 15 about building your horse mom village, take the opportunity at horse shows to strike up conversation with the person next to you who's aimlessly staring at the course printouts right by the gate. They might be your new horse mom bestie before you leave the show 12 hours later. You just never know, my friend. Okay, so I'm going to let you in on another bit of a secret. As I have said before, this sport can last a lifetime. So unless your kid is aiming to ride on an NCEA team in college, you don't have to hit that big show circuit anytime soon. You do not have to do it all right now. Candidly, you don't need to engage in the points race of these local show associations or even state show associations if it puts too much strain on you as a family. And remember, the strain is not just financial. Even if we had all the money in the world, I don't see a time when it would make sense to let Chloe show every weekend, unless it really was all the money in the world and I didn't have to work and I could recuperate on Mondays, maybe. Maybe then we could do that. But for real, if your kid is just starting to show off property, there's no need to jump headfirst into a full season. Let them have the time to reflect on how they performed at a show for a couple of weeks after that show. Have lessons where they course correct and optimize what might have gone wrong at the show. And then the next show that they attend, they can sort of put those learnings into action. Do not feel pressured to do it all. And also don't feel pressure to think that by not letting your kid go to all the horse shows, they are missing out. I heard my kid a couple of weeks ago say something in the car when she was talking to a friend, was that real learning happens at home, which means in your lessons, in your alone rides with your horse. That's where the bulk of learning to ride is going to happen. Yeah, it shows you can sort of uncover inconsistencies that you need to work on, but don't think by not spending a fortune of time and money by going to all the shows, your kid is not becoming a better rider. So I got your back on that one, mamas. So last up, I want to wrap up with a little bit about how we made it work, but honestly, what I would have done differently had I known anything really walking into horse showing. So I would have waited to buy Chloe's show clothes until we knew that we actually had a show locked in, which I know might sound a little bit like a procrastinator, but we ended up buying a used Hunter show coat thinking that she was going to be showing the following month. She ended up not showing for 6 months because of horse issues and weather issues. And in the end, she ended up showing not in a Hunter show, but in a jumper show where she didn't even need the coat. So I say adopt the time blindness of horse shows and go at your own pace. There's no need to rush gathering all these supplies. You can typically borrow a show coat from someone at your barn or find it at a consignment shop or on Facebook. You can get show pants sent to you very quickly, either from Amazon or tax stores like Big D's that you can order from. Just know you don't have to buy it all months in advance. Next thing I would have done was focus more on saving money where it matters. So I was talking with a friend earlier today, and we were laughing about how a lot of folks out there will say for horse shows, like pack your own lunches and really save money on bringing all the things to the show instead of buying at the show. But at the end of the day, if buying my kiddo a $15 chicken tender meal with fries that she's going to end up sharing with her teammates and is one of her most favorite things to do after she's finished showing, that's not going to really move this bigger picture of the horse show budget very much. So if that's something that brings joy to you, your kid, go for it. No matter who is telling you to pack all of these lunches the night before you need to meet a barn full of people at 5 a.m. And this kind of leads in actually to my next recommendation and what I would have done differently. I would have simplified our setup a lot more. I remember in the early days of Chloe showing, I would go out the night before and make sure that we had food for her to have breakfast. Okay, spoiler, she doesn't even eat breakfast before she shows. Now I try to get a donut because I know that's appealing enough to her that she will eat it. I would find breakfast items. I would pack sandwiches. I would get fruit and put it in a cooler and Gatorade and big buckets of water. All of that sounds great. And also, it was a lot for me to have to gather when horse show weekend is already really busy. Now, what I do is I make sure I have said donut available for her or something that she will at least eat in the morning. Make sure that we have water. When it starts to get really warm out, we'll have Gatorade, and I'll often bring watermelon because that's easy just to throw in a tiny little lunchbox. And then we'll get food from the food truck because I don't want to be schlepping a bunch of stuff all around the horse show grounds and having the lunchbox be at the ring and then the kid is hungry at the barn and needing to do all of that transporting of food back and forth. No, thank you. When I go to the horse show now, I have my water, my coffee. I have an over-the-shoulder bag that I can stuff a bunch of stuff in, and that's it. I don't want to have to keep up with a bunch of things. So simplify your setup as simply as it makes you feel comfortable so that you're not dragging a bunch of stuff around unless that's what you love to do. If that's your jam, go for it. It was not mine. And I felt more scattered having all these different things in different places. It's so much easier just to buy a chicken quesadilla and fries at the food truck after she's done showing. I want to say this last part out loud because I think a lot of us feel it. You can love this horse show life for your kid and still feel completely overwhelmed by it. Getting up at 5 a.m. to rush to a barn, to rush to a show, to sit for 6 hours, to wait for your kid to ride for 5 minutes is a lot. And honestly, post-horse show naps are my deepest of sleeps, my friend. So you can be very proud out there watching them and also be mentally calculating the cost of the weekend. You can be excited that they come to you at the show wanting to do a higher level division, adding it onto the show bill, and also be calculating the cost of it as you kind of smile and grit your way through it. All of these things can be true at once. Horse shows can be magical, and also they can be a lot. So figure out what works for you, your kid, your family, your wallet, and your sanity. All right, Mama, spill the beans. What does your show season look like? I want to know what you are getting into this year. So shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know so that I know what our community is doing so that I can support you as much as possible through it. And until next time, inside leg, outside rein, whatever that means. All right, I'll chat with you soon. Take care. That's it for this episode of Broke Horse Moms. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you are trying to get organized for show season, don't forget to download the 2026 Broke Horse Moms Planning Workbook. It's linked in the show notes, or you can grab it at brokehorsemoms.com/2026. If you know another mom who suddenly found herself learning the horse world right alongside her kid, please send this episode her way. The more horse moms we have figuring this out together, the better. I'll see you in the next episode, and until then, give your rider a hug, if they actually let you, and take a deep breath, Mama. You are doing great.